control. It'll come up with everything about just your profile and hardware and all of that. If you need an update, that will be on there as well. But so essentially, to get started, go ahead and hit Go Fly. Now in here, it's going to give you all of your information. Right now, my drone is just sitting on my desk with the gimbal cover on it. So it's going to tell you that the gimbal is stuck up in that top left there. And then you'll see in the top right-hand corner, it'll show you your battery percentage. It will show you your radio connection, as well as how many satellites that you have. And on the bottom of the screen, you got a little map. You have flight information to show you how fast you're going, how high you are, your rate of vertical ascent, and how far away from the home point you are. Now you'll see as I remove the gimbal cover that the camera will kind of come to life, and it will say take off permitted. I'm still not going to take off because I'm inside. But here you can see that the camera is on. Now you've got a whole bunch of different modes in here. So there's photo and video, but then within that there are even more modes. So if you take a look at the red record button, on top of that you'll see a little film strip. If you go ahead and tap on that, that'll show you all of the different modes. We've got normal video, HDR, and then slow motion. If you tap into the photo, it will give you the option to just take a regular photo. You can do 48 megapixels, which makes it a lot more high resolution. You've got your smart, which I believe is an exposure bracketing setting, like an HDR type photo. Auto exposure bracketing, burst, and then you can do a timed shot as well. If you click on the bottom right here, you have the option to shoot in JPEG, or you can shoot in JPEG and RAW. The very bottom right icon that says auto, if you tap that, this will bring up manual controls. So the icon is changed to a little camera that says Pro, and this will allow you to change your shutter speed, exposure compensation, ISO, and all of that good stuff. You can change the white balance, and then set your storage to either internal or on the SD card. I don't have an SD card in there at the moment, but that's generally where I will store things. I have a 128 gigabyte micro SD. If you're just starting out, just getting into both photography and drone flying, recommend that you just put it on auto. Then the only settings that you'll change there is your exposure compensation, like I'm doing here. And so that's great in different light conditions. Let me go ahead and move that lighter out of the way. And you do have the option to put a ND filter on the drone as well. And so that's kind of nice. Okay. Back into video mode. So again, you can choose to do Pro, which lets you take full control, or Auto. There's certain things that you can't change in Auto, like the aperture and things like that. So you can also shoot in, you can do 4K, 2.7K, 1080p, and that will allow you to see what frame rates you have. So slow motion, shoot in 60 frames per second, which isn't great, but that's certainly better than nothing. 4K zoom, so that's going to crop it a little bit. I always just shoot at 4K, 24 frames per second. Now in the video mode, you've got some other options like a panorama or a hyperlapse, but then there's also these quick shots, which are really nice. And we can't enter it right now because we're not in flight, but essentially quick shot is going to allow you to do pre-programmed movements. So like you can do a circle, which will just do a nice circle around you, a boomerang where it'll go out and then come back towards you, a helix pattern, which kind of flies up and circles around a couple of times while continuing to gain elevation. So it's pretty cool stuff that will give you some advanced kind of cinematic movements without having to actually know how to operate the drone and do it that way. Another thing that you can do while you're in the video mode here is to enable active track. All you need to do is drag a box around your subject. So I've selected this microphone. You can click on active track and you can do trace, which will just follow the subject. You can also suggest parallel, which will, as the name says, follow you in a parallel direction. Spotlight will continue to fly and keep whatever you have selected in frame, so the camera will kind of change angles depending on how the drone is. And then there is also the point of interest, where you are able to kind of rotate the camera around a selected point. And so that is pretty cool. You can hit the play button to get access to your photos, videos on the aircraft or in your little app album. And when you do if you do one of the quick shot modes in your app album, it'll actually show you what you're doing. So here it shows me a little circle. If I click on the video and play it, you can see that that was a quick shot mode. A circle. Do another one here. And unfortunately with DJI, the software can definitely be a little bit finicky, so it's not always great. And yeah, so that is basically the features within the app. Let's go ahead and talk about some other stuff. So taking a look at the remote here, pretty simple functionality. You can see that I actually drew on here when I first got the remote, so I could kind of remember what the heck I was doing and what all it did. So that left joystick is going to control your altitude, height, up or down, as well as actually turning and rotating the drone. And then your right stick is going to go forward, backward, and then left and right. The important thing to remember actually is, the drone spins 360 degrees. So if you have the drone rotated and you try to go forward, it may actually go backward. So there's definitely a bit of a learning curve to it. So it's highly recommended that before you actually need to shoot, you get out there and get some time in with these joysticks. So there's the home button on the left there. That is, you just go ahead and tap that, and that is going to go ahead and bring your drone home. Nice feature to have. That'll send it back to you. And then the power button on the right there, do one press and then another press and hold, and that will turn on the remote. You have your camera button there. That will turn it from photo to video, and likewise. And then there is the shutter release and record button. So you'll go ahead and hit that, any time that you want to take a photo or start recording. Then here is the gimbal dial. This takes some getting used to. A good way to remember how to operate this is if you push up on the dial, push it towards the right, that is